Okay, here we're live. Testing, testing. Today on oh, I'm rusty. Here we go. Testing, testing. Today on Quality Time with Family Ties, we learn, along with America, that Nick should Van Gogh away.
Hi, everybody. This is Quality Time with Family Ties. I'm one of your hosts, Corey Pepper, and I am here, as always, as they say, with Paul Packler, all the way from New York City. How's everything, Paul?
It's great. It's a lovely day. I bought some new blazers, one with leather elbow patches that I'm very excited to show off in upcoming episodes.
How Alex P. Keaton of you.
Yeah, truly. How's everything there?
Hotter than hell. It's like 110 degrees outside. It's a little warm in Los Angeles. But, sooner or later we'll have a fall.
I don't count on anything anymore.
I know. You really can't. Those are the things you used to be able to count on. Death, taxes, and autumn.
Yeah, season's changing. No, we don't have that anymore.
Yeah, not so much. Not so much anymore.
Speaking of things that you can't count on, things that you can count on is that we're going to be watching more Family Ties.
Yes, that you can count on.
Welcome back, everybody. This is our pre-season 6 episode. We have a little bonus for you, as you can see if you were looking at iTunes or on the website.
This is our 6th season?
Isn't it crazy? We've had like 120 some episodes at this point.
You probably shouldn't have mentioned that to me. I'm guessing you shouldn't have mentioned it, but you did. So there. It's just
we only have about 50 more episodes, Corey.
You keep saying things like that, I'm going to kill myself. But I'll tell you, if I didn't kill myself after this failed pilot that we watched, I'm never going to kill myself if I didn't kill myself after this. I could do a half hour on the opening credits of The Art of Being Nick.
Well, so this is the failed pilot that they tried to do a spin-off with Nick Moore, our favorite woke character on Family Ties, the dark horse of being the best person on Family Ties, Nick Moore.
And, as much as Nick Moore on Family Ties is one of my favorite characters, Nick Moore on The Art of Being Nick was just dreadful. And it was a dreadful show.
Can we start at the beginning? I went on Wikipedia to read about The Art of Being Nick, and there's a lot of interesting information that I was not aware of.
Really?
Okay, so let's just start from this. So it was created by Bruce Helford. Do you know who that is, Corey?
I certainly do know who Bruce Helford was because besides when I was doing my Warner Brothers Comedy Writers Training Program, the show that I was assigned to observe was Norm, which was created by Bruce Helford. So I got to meet Bruce Helford. Bruce Helford is probably most famous for the Drew Carey Show and for Norm, the Norm Macdonald Show. But even currently, Anger Management with Charlie Sheen. And prior to that, what horrible show was he the creator of on CBS? There was some CBS show he was.
Yeah, there were a couple of ones in like the past 10, 15 years that he's produced that I was just like, oh, one of those.
There's almost no period of time in our lives in the last 25 years that Bruce Helford hasn't been the creator and guiding force of some television show on television.
Yes, he was also a producer on season 5 of Roseanne, which I don't know why that is.
Yeah, he did one season, and he and Tom Arnold and Roseanne did not hit it off, I believe.
Okay.
But that got him in on ABC with the people over at ABC, and that's when he had his big ABC years, which I think were probably Two Broke Girls. I believe he created that as well with Whitney Cummings.
Oh wow, okay.
So it's just he's been all over the place. He's never been. I don't think he's the sharpest writer in history. I mean, and he wrote 5 or 6 Family Ties episodes, which is how he got hooked up with Gary David Goldberg.
Yeah. This feels very much like a Gary David Goldberg thing. There are a couple jokes in it that I thought were edgier than normal, and that I was like, oh wow, but like structurally and the characters just constantly underselling their characterization for a joke, for a cheap joke.
Yes.
felt very gay, very.
It'd be very interesting to hear what jokes you picked out, because there were a couple that I thought were sort of real sharp in this episode. I thought they were like, which was really strange, because I thought they were like, in fact, there was one in particular, I think, that I thought was like a really well-crafted joke that was way above the intellect of the rest of the show.
Yes, very much so. So, okay, and then the cast, I mean, we'll just quickly go through them, but like, we have Nick, obviously played by Scott Valentine. Then we have his sister appearing for the first time, who is this blonde, waspy actress, and her name is, wait, I have it.
Christine Sutherland? Christine?
Yes. She played one of the moms on Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And she also played Buffy's mother on the series Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Wow.
I thought she was just completely miscast, and her character was just given nothing to do.
Well, and with a stick up the butt too. So they gave it. They handcuffed her as being like a sort of a fussy kind of I'm not really gonna. I'm an older sister, but I'm very judgy.
Right. And, the acting style was it felt very old fashioned at times. It was weird. Then the big get for this series, and she stuck out like a sore thumb for how funny and talented she was, Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Rachel, who runs a bookstore.
And this is post Saturday Night Live, pre Seinfeld.
Yeah, just a year or two before Seinfeld.
And this is and it's right after. I mean, and she couldn't look and act more Elaine.
Yeah.
With maybe a notch of neurosis down, just a notch down. But she looked great, and definitely had already she had her post SNL nose job.
Oh, I didn't know she had a nose job.
Oh, take a look at some early SNL episodes.
Okay. Because, I mean, she got SNL right out of college. Or she was in college when she got that. She was one of the youngest performers, other than, like, Anthony Michael Hall, who was a teenager.
And was there any other male regulars on the show?
There was this guy that was going to be so Nick's sister has a son, so that's his Nick's nephew.
Oh yes, a lot of the nephew, Louis,
exactly. And then there's this guy Bob, who is Louis's teacher and is going to be engaged to the mom.
Yeah, and he was definitely going to be, if not a recurring, certainly, if not a regular, certainly recurring on a regular basis.
Yeah, and Louis, the kid, was played by John Damon. I didn't recognize him as anything.
Nope, don't recognize him as anything. Didn't even look it up.
You know who he looked like though?
Who?
He looked like Jeffrey Landman as a kid.
From, what was it, the Leprechaun movie that he was in?
Halloween 5.
Halloween 5. I knew it was something like that.
Yeah. But that's it. That's the cast. That's the main core of the cast.
And not a dreadful cast, to be honest with you. I think they should have been very happy. You know, as much as Louis is almost like an Andrew kind of figure, as Andrew is on Family Ties, always coming in with the wisecrack at the end. This kid didn't irritate the shit out of me, thank God. So it was all right.
So here's some crazy backstory to the process of trying to get this show on the air. So this is all from Wikipedia. Due to the popularity of the Nick Moore character, 3 versions of a spin-off were produced. In the first incarnation, it was titled Taking It Home. Nick returns to Detroit to live with his sister and grandfather, portrayed by Herschel Bernardi. And who is that?
Herschel Bernardi was the second Tevye on Broadway in Fiddler on the Roof. And that's really, he did a television show in the 60s called Arnie, but he was like a character actor, like a Jewish kind of character actor.
Okay. So what happened was, after Bernardi's death in May of 1986, that series was canceled. The second version features Nick working in a daycare center for juvenile delinquents, which actually, to me, of the 3 options, sounds like it might have been the most interesting. Just like a very 80s type thing where they like did Drexel's Class in the 90s with Dabney Coleman. And obviously, Welcome Back, Kotter was a thing, you know, that sort of Head of the Class, which was the smart kid version of Welcome Back, Kotter.
I'll tell you, why do you think they were so intent upon Is it because they had such success with Family Ties, intent upon spinning Nick off?
Yeah, you know, if I were the producers, I wouldn't have thought, hey, Nick is the most popular character to spin this off into. If anything, I would have tried to do a Tracy Pollan character spinoff. She seemed to have the most traction as a character, whereas Nick, he always felt like a reactionary character.
That's exactly what I was thinking. A supportive character of both Mallory's and Alex's, but definitely not the guy who you want to say, wow, he has so much, there's so much interesting stuff about him that we have stories galore to tell. I just don't see it with him.
I would say Tracy Pollan's character, and then maybe a second would be Skippy, but even that would not be a great idea. But I feel like with Skippy, you could have a little bit more. It would be a weird show.
Give Skippy a girlfriend like that girlfriend he had in that one episode, you know, geeky girlfriend.
Yeah.
And have him in a relationship, you know, as geeks.
Yeah.
Been before Bang Theory's time.
Exactly. Yeah, it would have definitely been a precursor to that sort of style of comedy. And so this one, The Art of Being Nick, is the third version of a pilot that they put together. They really wanted to get this done, and it aired on August 27th, 1987, making it almost to the day 30 years ago.
Wow.
It's crazy, right?
Wow, think of how old Nick is now. What do you think Scott Valentine looks like? You think he's bald?
You'd have to be, right?
I guess he's bald. Can I get up? What?
I know.
Why are we leaving the dog? It's the dog.
Oh,
okay. Okay. I like the dog. Can you get my water?
Yes.
It's so hot.
Exactly.
The dog was outside. You had to let the dog in.
Oh, is the dog okay?
What, you fucking care? It's a dog.
No, it's your dog. I don't want the dog to be hurt. What am I?
I know.
What am I, Joe Arpaio now?
You just compared me to Sheriff Joe Arpaio.
No, I compared me, saying that I'm the one that wants dogs to overheat and die.
That you were racially profiling dogs?
Did you not hear what happened?
With what?
With what he did with the dog? You know what? Let's just cut all this out. We don't need to talk about him murdering dogs.
Sheriff Joe Arpaio killed dogs?
Yes, he killed a dog. See?
Wow. Shocked. It's awful. Well, let's cheer everybody up by talking about The Art of Being Nick.
Yeah. So, okay, so now we're at the opening credits of The Art of Being Nick. Corey, you said you had 30 minutes. I'll just open the floor. Go for it.
Dear sweet God, I wish that sweet saxophone was playing right now in my head. I almost couldn't take any more shots of Nick on the streets of New York looking bewildered and slightly modelish.
Yeah, they really prettied him up in a weird way.
They rammed him up for this.
I don't know why they did that. He was supposed to be like a Rambo character, and now he looks like a JCPenney model.
Yep. And it was like the longest credits I've ever heard. It was like a full saxophone piece, like maybe 3.5 minutes long.
Yeah, and so the game of this whole credit sequence is you see something in New York, something New Yorky, then you see Nick staring at a window, then and he's like dumbfounded, and then it cuts to the window, he's looking at a painting of some style of artist, whether it be like Andy Warhol or Van Gogh or I was gonna say Pizarro, Picasso. That's an inside Family Ties joke right there. But and they just keep doing that over and over. And Corey, the theme song is so boring.
It's the dullest. It's like elevator music.
And there's no lyrics.
None. No.
They're spinning off one of the most popular theme songs for a sitcom in the history of ever. Like the Family Ties theme song is the best part of Family Ties at this point.
At this point, yes. Wow. And then after these enormously long opening credits, we meet Nick, and he greets us as if he was on his very first episode of Family Ties with a very, very articulate, hey, hey.
And his voice has gone away. Like in the first scene, he doesn't sound like Nick at all.
No, he softens himself. They said, we want to see sort of elements of the Nick we know and love from Family Ties, Rambo, But we also want to see softer, sweeter, more artistic Nick. And poor Scott Valentine was just confused.
And that's that opening scene is that's all you felt is everybody felt uncomfortable and confused at how to play this.
They couldn't figure out the tone of the piece. It kept changing. Nick didn't know. And the other problem with it, of course, is that Bruce Helford, who has more money than you, me, and Scott put together times 100.
Easily.
And who am I to say Bruce Helford didn't bother to write a joke in any moment of this show, other than the one or two that we'll point out? The rest of it is jokeless.
Yeah, it's weird because I don't understand in a pilot why you would not be trying to like just pack it in with jokes in order to convince people to stick around.
That's it. It was weird. You know, we meet the sister immediately, and then we sort of get an intro into Louis, her child, and we sort of find out that Louis's father isn't really in the picture.
Right.
So they're sort of beating us over the head right off the bat. Oh, we can see where this is going. Nick, who's now the returning uncle, is now going to be the father equivalent in Louis's life at this, especially when we find out that Louis is sort of being bullied in school a little bit.
And here comes one of the first jokes that I thought, oh, that's interesting. Do you agree, Corey? Is this one of the ones?
I don't know. Tell me where you're going.
Okay. Okay. So Louis like, oh, I hate school. They pick on me. They stole my lunch money. They stole my backpack. And Bob said, I think we're going to enjoy spending a little bit more time together. And Nick sits down and goes, hey, buddy, there was a kid like Bob when I went to school, too. And the thing about and then the mom interrupts him. And the audience like awkwardly titters. So it's a gay joke. It's saying that he thinks that. I mean, the setup is so ham-fisted, but
is there bad touch going on here?
Right. Oh no, I think that we're supposed to assume that like Bob is the way that Louis painting it is that Bob is a kid with him.
Yes.
It's a little confusing.
What was the actor's name who played Bob? Do you remember?
I don't know.
He was somebody who showed up in a couple of sitcoms later on in life.
Yeah. It doesn't even say.
And then the sister, she sort of gives the whole sad sack story of, wow, there've only been bad men in my life. I've had a bad time with men. Men and me don't get along. I'm not a man kind of woman. I have problems with men, which was sort of like just dumping on Louis's dad as far as I could see.
Right. But maybe, at the same time,
their father as well, maybe she was dumping on Nick and her father.
So this is the first scene of a sitcom that they're trying to write. And the first thing that they introduce us to is that Nick has left Family Ties world in Columbus, Ohio for New York City, where he's ostensibly from.
Right.
And they don't explain any of that. That's the first thing that I was surprised that they didn't bring up Mallory. They didn't talk about like, hey.
I was shocked they didn't mention the word Mallory.
No, never ever.
Or Dayton or Ohio.
Yeah. And then when they talk about the mom or the sister and her wanting to find a man and all this stuff, it's just like, it's all so depressing. And it's all just like, woe is me. This is the first 5 minutes of your sitcom, and you're already establishing that it's like really sad.
Mm-hmm.
That's not fun.
Yeah, that's the whole thing is that with all these sad characters, it was like, okay, this isn't exactly fun, except for, and this is where we get right now that Nick is looking for a job,
right?
And sister seems to own a bookstore, and she has a manager of the bookstore named Rachel, and apparently the owner, this must be the only ownership situation in the history of mankind in which the owner can't just say, nepotism, my brother gets the job.
Right.
Isn't that what owners do?
that she has to go in for an interview, and she might have a veto power over the
Right.
sister.
Exactly.
And
Okay, how come your manager has more say than, say, the owner?
yeah, it's very strange. And I don't know why Nick wants to work in a bookstore. They make that blatantly clear that he doesn't read.
Right. So it just seems like, wow, you're trying to put a square peg into a round hole, and it's never going to work.
Yeah.
Then that's really pointed up in the next scene when we're at the bookstore, and amongst the first words that are uttered by Julia Louis-Dreyfus is, "Oh my God, he's like beautiful but dumb."
Right.
So that's clearly what they want from Nick's character: beautiful but dumb.
Yes. And that they have like an opposite attract situation where
Right.
Rachel is this worldly Manhattanite bohemian intellectual, and so the two of them are going to argue but fall in love type thing.
And so they thought Julia Louis-Dreyfus, she's the right love interest for Scott Valentine.
Right.
So they're having their little interview, and first Nick grunts a lot, then they have the interview. Clearly there's an attraction between Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Nick. And she ends up sitting there pouring her heart out about the boyfriend who broke up with her that day.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, is that throughout the entire part where they're looking at Nick from across the room, and he's playing with a children's book that you like tie and Velcro and all that, zip the zipper, she keeps going back and forth over what an idiot she is, and she's in love with him, and then she keeps saying this over and over, and she keeps like going back and forth, and luckily, Julia Louis-Dreyfus is a talented enough actress, she can make these wild shifts in emotion work.
Absolutely.
But the writing is doing her no favors.
None. It was sort of kind of stunning to see how she triumphed over the writers. It was almost as if, wow, she turned some really mediocre material into something that was a lot more interesting.
It's like when you're watching the original Star Wars and Alec Guinness makes that shit sound great.
Did she say the word? I think she did say it at one point. And I thought it was clever. She called Nick the antithesis of a bookstore employee.
Yes, she did.
And I thought, okay, that's exactly, I mean, if you want to crystallize the joke into it, yep, he is the antithesis of a bookstore employee.
Yeah, yeah. And then so in this case, I don't, because like the sister is hardly ever in the bookstore from here on out.
And that was the other thing. Is like, okay, so she's the owner who gave veto power to her manager and then stays home and raises a kid. That's how she owns the store. She's going to get robbed blind.
Now, here's where I would come in and say to Bruce Helford, who, again, has way more money than either of us and has created TV shows that outnumber us probably ever. I would say if this is about Nick, who we know is an artist, and he wants to be in the art world, and it doesn't matter what job Rachel has, why not have her be in charge of running an art gallery? And so she sees art one way, he sees art a different way, but he's working there as like the janitor or some crap, and then that could be an interesting dynamic.
There's your conflict.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes more sense for who we know Nick to be. A lot of the show, the problem I see is they keep going away from Nick instead of if he's your star, if he's your focus, everything has to flow into him.
That's exactly right. They didn't service Scott Valentine very well in the show. They kept on turning him, whereas in Family Ties, they use Nick as a comic device, as conflict between him and Steven, him and Elise, him and Mallory, him and Alex. In this show, they let him be the reactionary character to everybody else's. You know, he sits and listens to his sister pour her heart out. He sits and listens to Julia Louis-Dreyfus pour her heart out. And he keeps on sitting there and being the reactionary character, but that's not his strength. His strength is the one-liners here and there, just playing dumbfounded, that he just doesn't understand something. They just instead he has to like, oh, I get it. I'm gonna try and help you with your problem. No, that's not Nick.
no, no.
And then we really get it laid on us in the third scene of the first act, the final scene of the first act, which is we get our Nick and Louie relationship, which we get back later on in the episode, where it really focuses a lot on the Nick-Louie relationship.
I thought that was an interesting thing, you know, just to have him with a kid. It was cool.
Do you think that that was going to be the fire escape was going to be their thing?
I assume so. It seemed like because they went there at least 2 times this episode, right?
Yeah. At least 2 times, and it was referred to another time, I think. And what I was curious about is, do you remember a show? I think it was NBC. It was called The Torkelsons.
No.
Very short time, 13 weeks, I think. But it opened and closed every week with a little girl. It was about a girl. It was about a teenage girl. And she would open and close the show sitting in her window seat, addressing the moon.
Oh.
It reminded me of that device. I thought it was a very clever framing device for every episode, that she opened the show talking to the moon and basically addressing what the theme of the episode is in whatever talking to the moon about. And then then there was the show, and then she would end in the window seat again, addressing the moon one more time.
It's very much like the Doogie Howser typing at the computer.
Absolutely, or Sex in the City typing in the computer, which they stole from David E. Kelly.
Right, right. The other thing about this scene that I thought was weird is that they dragged the TV out to watch it outside.
I thought that was weird too. And I was thinking, all right, I lived in Manhattan, and definitely on a hot night, you live in Manhattan, on a hot night, people do weird things in New York.
It's true. But I thought a funny joke that could have been had is that maybe they can't afford a TV, and so going out onto the fire escape is how you watch TV, by watching someone else's.
Yeah, exactly. And it's in this scene that Mom comes in. She was on a date, apparently, and Nick was watching Louie, babysitting, for want of a better word. And Mom comes home from her date, and you can see Mom is all at Twitter because Mom's got some big news that can't wait. And we all know what that big news is going to be. Mom has been asked to marry Teacher Bob.
Yeah, and the dialogue in this section is some of the worst dialogue I've ever come across.
It is awkward, and I cringed during a lot of this scene. It was like, okay, I wish it would be over already. It's just awful.
Yeah, she says, like, you know, Bob has proposed to marry me. And the kid's like, that's great, Mom. And then she, like, turns away and she's like, I knew you'd be happy about it. And then she runs off and you're just like, whoa, what just happened?
And then you get a close-up, of the kid who's clearly not happy about it, which leads me to believe, wow, Mom, you're a shitty mom. You couldn't pick up on the fact that that kid hasn't wanted you to date his teacher, let alone marry the teacher.
Right, right. And if you're a mom with a kid, I would assume the conversation would last a little long. I get it's TV, but
yeah, but it would be a bit more explored.
And so what happens is, for the act out, they do this camera move where it goes on the kid's face, and it pans to the left, and his face goes bathed in blue light. It's like an act break in a Tennessee Williams play. And then you see through the window from the fire escape into the kitchen, where Nick is celebrating with Mom and Bob the teacher, and then we slowly fade. And I was like, you know, whoever directed this was an artist. Sam Wiseman, Corey.
I know. I saw it. Went and looked it up. I said, well, that's my friend Sam directing another piece of art on television, The Art of Being Nick.
He's one of the longest running directors of Family Ties, right? Like, he did the most.
I would think after, I think actually he is the most. He's number one on the list.
So on that note, that's our act break. We'll be right back. And we're back. One thing I wanted to say, Corey, is that this is not available on our DVD collections. Or how do you watch Family Ties usually?
I watched it on YouTube. Normally I watch it on Amazon.
Okay. We watched this on YouTube. I watched it on Video Motion because the sound on YouTube was a little bad.
Boy, was the sound bad. What do you mean Video Motion? What is that? Explain that to the old man.
It's like a version of YouTube where the rights laws. So you can sometimes find things that get blocked on YouTube. All you have to do, you can just Google it. Just Google whatever you're looking for, hit video, and it might come up on Video Motion.
Wow.
Anyway, so I watched it on there, but the version that you and I both watched was recorded from TV Land. So there's a 24-minute version that we haven't seen. So there's 3 minutes that we haven't seen in this truncated, version of The Art of Being Nick. So at one point, maybe we'll find those 3 minutes.
The lost 3 minutes, like the Nixon tapes.
Exactly. I don't know which one I would want to see or hear more. They're both so appealing.
Mm-hmm. We start the second act, and I'm actually amused at this scene. This scene was the scene that I found the most amusing. The depressed book signing, I thought, was a very funny idea.
Yes, it felt like an actual sitcom we were watching at this point.
It's the only moment that worked for me, and this whole scene worked largely because of Julia Louis-Dreyfus, but it was really funny.
Do you think this was like the beginning of the new type of sitcom where it was the family at the workplace thing, where it was like in the 80s?
Yeah, the workplace family. Yeah, the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Yeah. Because in the 80s, it was all the Huxtables and the Keatons and all these different families and families and families. And then by the 90s, you get into Seinfeld and Friends and all this stuff where it's not about family anymore, or like a nuclear family.
It's about a family of friends.
Yeah, and I feel like this was sort of straddling that. It's interesting.
Because you have Nick with his sister, but he's also working in the bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
I have something written down about Dr. Seuss and the medical staff. Is that what I have written down? Dr. Seuss.
Yeah. So this is like they're having this book signing for this doctor who's writing a book about depressed people. And then you have all these jokes about the depressed people that are there to buy the book. And Nick comes up because he's working that day or whatever, and he says to Rachel, "I'm having problems with Louis. He seems upset. Is there anything I can get for a kid?" And she says, "Oh, what do kids read?" And she's like, "Well, Dr. Seuss." And he's like, "Well, he's not into medicine."
Ah, that's it. That was the medicine. Right.
Right.
But then it was the next joke that I thought was my favorite joke was the guy on the ladder, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus got it. It was a guy on a ladder looking for a book, and she told Nick to take his tie away from him.
Yes. She's like, if you're going to be on a ladder, we have to take your tie away.
Yes. I thought that was like, oh, okay, it's a hanging joke. That's pretty fun.
Yeah. It's definitely not something you would normally see on Family Ties.
Yeah, the depressed guy wearing a tie on a ladder had to be chastised. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
So we get a phone call that Louis is in trouble in school, and of course, who do you call when Louis is in trouble at school? Call Uncle Nick.
Right. And so he goes to the classroom, which is like the third set that we've seen.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. The bookstore, the kitchen, and the school.
Yeah. And so what happened is Louis has chained himself to the desk, and I couldn't tell if he had gotten a B or a D on his test because the sound was so bad. Did you pick it out?
It was a B that he got.
Okay. And he's very upset.
Yeah, he was protesting his social studies grade.
Right, and Bob is his teacher.
And clearly, Nick comes in and instinctively sees that this isn't about his social studies grade. This is about Bob and Mom, and he knows it.
Yeah, and for some reason, the dumbest person, in quotation marks, is the only one who gets this. It's like, Mom, you just told your son that you're getting married, and now he's acting out. I don't know what could be the cause of this.
Yeah, well, where's the mystery here? How do you not get this, lady?
Yeah, instead, she comes running on after this scene has been transpiring, and she's like, Nick, it's because you wear jeans that this is happening.
She blames Nick on the B.
Yes. That he's acting out because Nick rides a motorcycle.
And she actually says, you're a bad influence on him. What the fuck has Nick done for the last 16 minutes that was so bad?
No, nothing. And that entire device is just insane. It makes no sense. Maybe in that missing 3 minutes, he like killed a dog or something.
Then I get it, maybe. Boy, this is just so silly. So she blames Nick, and he gets it. He understands that he's being blamed, and he leaves.
Right.
And now we're back on the fire escape. Think of the fire escape as the kitchen in the Keaton household.
Oh, you know what was crazy? In the first moments when Nick sits down being like, man, I need a job. Things are crazy moving here to New York City. He goes to the fridge and he grabs a carton of orange juice.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, look at that. Nick knows where his bread's buttered.
Exactly. Got to bring out the OJ. So we're on the fire escape, and it's a long-ass, long-winded Nick and Louie scene. And all I wrote down was a long yuck.
Yeah. And this was like the normal, like you said, the Keaton kitchen heart-to-heart scene. But this one goes on for like 5 minutes.
Oh, forever. And there's no point to it. It's just, we're going to wrap things up here, and we're going to give us all a future where she's going to marry Bob, and Louie's going to have to deal with that, and Nick's going to be there to help that transition. And now you have Uncle Nick here, and you'll have Bob and Nick. You have a male influence in your life now, Louie. And Louie doesn't seem to care, and Nick doesn't seem to care, and the sister doesn't seem to care. And I keep on thinking, wow, how can we get Julia Louis-Dreyfus onto this fire escape?
That would have been amazing. If she was like, Nick, you forgot your book, and it's the one with like the kids' zippers and stuff in it or something.
That is the end of the show. It just sort of dangles there.
Yeah, the end of the show is where they try to set up a dynamic where in the first scene, Nick is like, hey, Louie, why don't you call me Uncle Nick? And he's like, well, it's because you're a stranger. I never see you. And so at the end of the episode, the last line is where he goes, good night, Uncle Nick. And then that's the...
Oh, boy, that was a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah, I mean, the tough thing with pilot episodes is you have to introduce so many characters. You have to introduce all of the relationships and dynamics and have an internal plot for that episode of why everything's happening and to follow that. And then also make it funny throughout the episode and stuff like that. And then at the end of a pilot, you have to put them on a journey in a meta arc for the rest of the series. So writing a pilot is very difficult. But
it is
certainly... Oh, go ahead.
I would say it's certainly difficult, and it's why some pilots are terrific, and then the series suck, and then sometimes the pilots are great, and then sometimes the pilot sucks, and they're able to rescue it in series.
Yes, exactly. Think of like Seinfeld.
Which was just a mess until they got to their second season.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's not the worst pilot ever. It's not like incompetent. It's just very boring. They didn't give enough for Nick to do as a character. They didn't focus the show on Nick enough. And yeah, I get it why this didn't get picked up.
Certainly.
So, anything else before we sign off and then go forward to season 6, Corey?
Oh, no. I'm looking forward to season 6, though.
Me too. I want mullets. I want season 6 to just be hardcore mullets.
Hopefully all of them will have them.
All right, so rate and review our show on iTunes. For questions and comments, email us at qualitytimewithfamilyties@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at QTWFT for updates, and you can follow each of us. I'm at Paul Packler.
I'm at Corpep, and Scott's at Follow Jones.
If you're just joining us because you love The Art of Being Nick, Scott is our third host.
Can you imagine that one person, Paul, who tuned in because they loved The Art of Being Nick, and they're going, who's this fucking Scott they talk about?
Exactly. Someone Googled The Art of Being Nick podcast, and this is what came up. You can also like our page on Facebook for Quality Time with Family Ties. We'd like to thank our host and producer, Barbara Dillon at Fanbase Press. Fanbase Press is a comic book publisher and an online community supporting other creators and fans through daily reviews, interviews, and podcasts that span the pop culture spectrum. Check them out at fanbasepress.com. We'd like to thank Perry Adams, who beautifully performs Family Ties and our theme song, Without Us. Check out her website at perryadams.com. We'd like to thank Bryant Dillon, who created our fantastic drawing and artwork, as well as edits our show. Bryant is the president and co-founder of Fanbase Press. Follow him on Twitter at Comic Book Slayer. Finally, we'd like to thank Sean Foster, Fanbase Press's graphic designer, for designing our logo. We will see you next week for Season 6. Bye!
Sha-la-la. La.